Grondon, thank you so much for being here. Grondon, I don't mean to hype you up too much, but I love when you talk. You are one of those guys that I've been just listening to for the last 13 years of my time here at Watershed. And I love the knowledge that you give us, the wisdom that you pour out. And I just want to say thank you for doing this. You're going to be leading us in the conversation of our values of honesty. And honestly, that's a perfect topic for you to cover because you are actually the guy on the video. You do the 10-day training video, right, for honesty?
Yeah, should we just show that and we can wrap this up?
No, yeah, let's just do a 3-minute video. Everybody leaves. That'd be perfect. But thank you, Grondon, for joining us. We're excited to hear you, and we'll get all our pens and paper ready, and I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate you pushing us to get these talks done.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. I know it's a lot of work for you guys to join every week and to step up and get bombarded with all this information and then try to apply it to work, but hopefully it's time well spent for you. Yeah, Dan, this honesty value is a word that I've honestly been battling with for
I know. I keep doing that, Grondon, and it pains me every time I do that. Honesty, we're talking about honesty, and honestly, I just keep repeating the word over and over.
This word, we've gone around and around like at the gym with this word. It's an easy word to say, man, I'm always honest in everything I do. But then when I really evaluate how I talk to people or how I've lived my life in the past, it's like I'll kind of put it on the side if it doesn't serve me well. And we can talk about that in a second as well. But let's just read through the definition. Can you put it up there?
Sorry about that.
Like that little quote in the top, honesty is the first chapter in the book of wisdom. And then we've gone on and defined it. Honesty is more than not lying. It's telling the truth, speaking the truth, and living the truth. And so a lot of you guys, when you got hired, you were told, hey, just memorize these words. And what we want to do today is just really think about this word of honesty and then break that down. So telling the truth, the first line there, telling the truth, that's just the factual part of this word honesty. So when someone comes to you and says, hey, did you do the morning checklist? You would say yes or no. Yes, I did it, right? Telling the truth, just being factual. The other day we had a broker who's helping us find some land, and we called him. Craig and I called him, and he said we hadn't heard back from the landowner, and then we called him like, hey, have you heard from the landowner? And he goes, oh yeah, I spoke to them this week. And we're like, oh great, well, what did he say? And then he had to come back, and he's like, oh, I spoke to him about a different deal we were working on with a different client. Well, like he knew what we meant. Like the facts are, did he talk to the landowner? Yes, I did, but he knew what we meant, but he kind of got himself in a pickle because then we did a follow-up question. Well, what did he say about our deal? And he goes, oh, we were discussing another piece of land for another client. I was like, it's a bit misleading, right? So this idea of honesty is very important. So speaking the truth, this is courage. Hey, Dan, have we ever showed the road to Abilene? I don't think we teach on that much.
No, we haven't. Nope.
But
nope,
speaking the truth, especially for this group here as our managers, speaking the truth always. That takes courage to do it, especially if not everyone is in line with your school of thought, or everyone's kind of going a different direction. So especially with our DMs, we're always saying, hey, we found a site in San Antonio on this corner. We're really expecting our district managers and our GMs to give us the truth of their evaluation. What do they think of the site? Not just, hey, if Mark loves the site or Justin loves the site, then all of a sudden we can all be in a bad situation because we're not all speaking the truth. So in the story, this road to Abilene, it's an interesting story. I think you can find it somewhere on the web or on YouTube. But the story,
it's on YouTube.
The story goes like this: there's people sitting in a little dusty town outside of Abilene, 45 minutes away, and it's a hot Sunday afternoon. And the mother goes, "Hey, why don't we take a trip into Abilene and eat at this cafe?" And it's kind of a hot August, sticky day in West Texas. And everyone's like, oh, okay, yeah, if that's what you want to do, we'll do that. So this whole family piles in this car and heads down to Abilene, and they have this mediocre meal in this hot diner, and then they drive all the way back home, and then this family erupts into this argument. Well, I never wanted to go to that cafe anyways. I never wanted to drive to Abilene. Why would we do that in the middle of a Sunday afternoon when it's hot and sticky? And then it's like, well, I didn't want to go either. Well, then why did you suggest it? Then this family dialogue goes back and forth, and they realize no one spoke the truth. They all just kind of went along with a suggestion. And simply all the mom was saying, would you guys want to do that? Had everyone said, no, that's a horrible idea, would have solved all those problems. And so this has been part of we showed this years ago at one of our retreats, and it was just an impactful conversation. And really, and so we'll just and say in a meeting sometimes, we'll be like, hey guys, what do we feel about this site, about this policy? And don't go down the road to Abilene. That just reminds everyone to speak the truth all the time. So this is a common phrase you'll see at a lot of our DM meetings and ownership meetings. And then the final word here is, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Hey, sorry, I wanted to add on to that. That actually, that was a very big moment in our time with Clean Freak and where we were heading. And as leaders like Willie and Justin and Jays and all of us, you guys gave us a voice to speak truth and to speak what we were feeling. And that was a huge difference for us. Like, not many corporations, not many businesses do that, because they lead from the top down. And they're like, I'm taking you the direction. And I do not care what your opinion is. Like, I don't want to hear your truth. Like, this is where we're going. And so hats off to you and the ownership team that allowed that conversations, and it gave us the ability to say what we were thinking. And that was powerful. Not many companies do that. So thank you.
Yeah, we've always been proud of the fact that we want to have a best decision possible and have this be a group decision, and never just a dictatorship where one person's forcing a policy. Especially when the price of building these car washes is so expensive, and what we're doing is important. The final line there is living the truth. And that's really about the conviction and the integrity issue in who you are as a person. I don't think Craig would mind, but it's a simple example. I sent out a video to some guys, and it's like, hey, let's watch this and discuss it. And I saw Craig in the hallway. He was walking out. Hey, did you get a chance to watch the video? And he walked by and he's like, oh yeah, I watched it. Well, let's discuss tomorrow. I was like, okay, cool. And a few minutes later, I got a call from Craig, and he's like, you know what? I didn't watch it. I don't know why I told you I watched it. And I didn't matter to me. He could have said he watched it and gone home and just watched it, and then he would have saved face. But because he's living the truth, it really bothered him. And he wasn't out of the office for more than a second, gets in his car and calls. He's like, man, I didn't watch it. And that's a man who is living the truth all the time. And when he lets a little white lie in, it really bothers him, and he just wants to clear that up. And that's why I tell you early on, this word, I battle with this word all the time, because it's I tend to want to always go to this idea of battling. I looked up again some new statistics on honesty, and this was shocking to me again. It says, according to research, 60% of people 18 or older are incapable of having a conversation without lying once every 10 minutes. Is that crazy? Like, we'll have a 20-minute conversation here, Dan. Both of us will be lying or misleading by statistics.
We should do like a little liar count. Like, if that was, I'm glad that's not posted on screen.
Like, yeah, my wife, she'll say, how many people are on the call? And I'll look at those, like, oh, we had 75, like
50, 60, 70.
Yeah. On average, 3 lies are told by adults every 10 minutes. And it's like, gosh, we keep just like that simple lie. Did you watch this? Did you read that? And we tend to say, yes, but you know what you meant. Just like that broker who's like, did you call that person? Yes, but and if you've ever gone through a book study with me, it's like, did you read the book? Did you read QBQ? Did you read this book? Did you watch this video? It's like, oh yes, I did. Then you know what's coming. There's going to be a follow-up question. Be prepared for that, versus that embarrassment of saying, well, I kind of, but I didn't really. And so be honest, I read it. I don't really understand it yet. I haven't really studied it yet. Fine. And everyone cares. No one cares, right? What would it be like, Dan, if we were honest all the time? It's pretty amazing, the benefits of just living this honest life, right? You would create more friendships. You'd create better friendships. You'd have deeper relationships with the friends that you have. You become more creative because you're not always You're not always trying to think, what did I tell this person? What did I tell that person? You get more energy from being honest, right? You're more fulfilled. You grow faster because you can be honest with people. Man, I don't understand how to do this. And if you don't understand something, the person who knows how to do it's more willing to coach you and train you up. So your growth plan is faster by living with honesty as one of your core values, your personal core values.
Yeah.
Um,
And one thing I was thinking about, Gron, when you said that is like, you're not fearful of like you said, answering the right question. You're not like, wait, what did I say? Or even what you like are the words we speak. Like I always use this expression. Mark's on the call, but he's listening. But every once in a while, I'll use Mark as like this idea of like, I would say the same thing to you if Mark was standing right next to me. Like, and so when I say that, it's saying that I am not fearful of what I'm saying. I'm not changing things. I'm not manipulating things. I'm not molding it to be the benefit for Dan. I would know if Mark was right here, I would say it right in front the same way. And so I don't know. I relate to that because it's not you're not changing things or tweaking things to be beneficial for yourself. You're just being truthful, and then whoever was listening, and they would know that the truth was being said. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. It's one of those words though. This is a struggle. And it's the years and years of just, man, having honesty in your front window. Like this is something you're going to commit to all the time. And we'll come with some strategies in a second to help you with this idea of honesty. But yeah, I love it. Hey, I was traveling on that same topic with Mark one time, and he got pulled out for a random searches at the airport, and they just kind of went through his bag and did some testing on his phone to make sure he wasn't smuggling in bombs and I had gone off and already was sitting at the gate. He showed up a while later. I'm like, they really put you through the ringer. And he just stood there. He's like, I have nothing to hide. Like, look through whatever you want. And I love that confidence where you're like, go ahead, look at my phone, go through my bag.
And and that's the word that I like that I want to repeat is the idea of confidence. I'm not worried of check my text. I'm not hey, check my photo library. I don't know if anybody's ever felt that way when you're like you hand someone your phone and like, yeah, check out this message. You're like, hey, but don't look too much. Hey, just stay on that one right there. Don't scroll, don't go left, don't go right. Because that isn't that funny how I think that's relatable. I saw a bunch of people like, yeah, I've been there. But that's the idea of even too with like our conversations, our words, what we say. Like I'm not afraid of or have that confidence that I'm not nervous about you checking up. I don't know, that's an interesting thought.
It's it's really good. That's why this is, do you really live this word? That's why it's the definition is that way. I'd be careful, the managers for you guys, and you're managing teams and you're leading a group of people. This idea could be a trap for our managers as well. You guys understand the minimum standards in our company. You know what the minimum standards are, and so sometimes we'll bring on an employee and we'll kind of coach them on how to load or how to act. And then they'll get off target from that a little bit. And then you won't be honest with them and giving them an honest evaluation. Hey, I don't like where we're trending. So you're like, I already told him 4 or 5 times to do it this way, or I told him to hustle, now I'm just tired of the coaching, right? And so this is where the trap of honesty comes in. I would encourage you to always have in your back pocket a commitment to honesty, a commitment to growing individuals, whether they like the conversation or not. And sometimes I would avoid conversation early in management because I didn't like the conflict that could come with it. And I was always afraid if I confronted someone and I was honest in where they were heading, then they would quit. And I've had that happen. I made my very first person I was in charge of, I confronted her and then she quit on the spot. And I was like, oh, I'll never do that again. And so then you become a weak manager because you're afraid. And so once I had to kind of reevaluate kind of what's the real reason that I don't know why this person got one correction and quit. It happens. Maybe she was going to quit anyways. This was just enough to put her over the edge. And so then it changed. It's like, man, this idea, and I'm going to give you another tool on the 20-70-10 in a second, how to really walk people through that, an honest conversation. But for us, have that in your back pocket. We have a trust but verify approach to management. We're going to confront all of our employees all the time, out of love and out of respect and out of their ability to grow, right? But don't be afraid to avoid conversation just because you're new at management. You know what the standards are. Make sure your team of 10 people are living up to that standard, the company standard. Okay. I like this. The reason I would always do a white lie, Dan, or always stretch the truth. For me, it might be early on to avoid some type of punishment or avoid some embarrassment. It could make us look better by telling people, hey, there's 75 people on the call and look how important we are. And I would avoid some shame, right? I might have a low self-esteem. So there's lots of reasons why we wouldn't want to be honest. And so we just got to protect against that, right? A couple examples for myself in honesty. I remember in the early days I had met Trevor, and we were going to do a 7 o'clock kind of Bible study and kind of work through life together. And I was from where I lived. Hold on a second. Let me just change mine. From where I lived, I was about 25 minutes of freeway time to his office, and we had about 2 or 3 streetlights in between. So I knew I had about a 25, 27-minute drive to his house or his office. And I was on time 3 or 4 times in a row, then I would be late. And then I would be on time a couple more times, and I'd be late twice. And then I started being 5 minutes late and 10 minutes late. So then I started calling him when I would be out. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be 10 minutes late, when in reality I was 12 minutes late. And because it was just a friendship and it was a Bible study and it was new in our relationship, he really didn't have that authority. I guess he did. He could have said, hey, if you can't get here on time, we're going to stop meeting. But he was like, yeah, don't worry, come when you want. And then I would start being late, and I would start looking at what did I use last week? Last week I told him we had traffic. Okay, so I can't use traffic again. And so now this week I'm going to say, I had to, my kids came downstairs. I needed to help them with something. And then he's going to be like, wow, you're a great dad. Way to go. Way to help out your kids. Yeah. Then the next week I would say, hey, I'm really busy at work. I just had to run in and do a quick errand because I'm so important at work. I wanted to get that out of the way. Then I'm going to run up and I'm going to be about 15 minutes late. The reality is, why I was late, I was just unorganized. I was oversleeping. I don't know. It wasn't as important for me to be there at 7. And I got convicted to this idea. I'm not going to lie anymore to Trevor. I'm just going to tell him the truth. But I didn't want to tell him I'm late anymore. So what I started doing, I started leaving 15, 20 minutes early and sitting in his parking lot, going through my emails or phones or texts. And then I'm like, that's a great idea. And then this whole idea of margin creeped into my life. And using honesty, I was too embarrassed to call him anymore and be late. So I decided to show up 15 minutes early. And it changed my whole process on, but see, the honesty was a driving force for me to get more organized, right? Because I didn't want to have to show up and say, hey, I'm late again. I just overslept. It wasn't important. Make sense?
Yep.
And so I tell you another story, and I've told it on the video. You guys have all heard it too, and I'll repeat it again. But there was a lady that worked for me in our first company, and she took the job, and the job had an 8 o'clock start time. And when she would show up, the same thing I was doing with Trevor, she would show up on time several days in a row. Then she started showing up late 2 days a week, 3 days a week, like 15, 20 minutes late. And I would write her up, and then I was finally saying, listen, I don't think it's going to work out. You're just always late. You're inconsistent. And then she finally broke down and she said, well, listen, I take the bus to work. And when if I take the 7 o'clock bus, it gets me here at 7:30, and I have to, my daughter has to walk to school alone. And if I take the later bus, it leaves my house around 7:45, 7:50. It gets me here in the parking lot at 7 or 8:10 and 8:15. I could be at work by 8:20. And so then I was like, if I change your schedule, would that work? And she's like, that would be amazing. She didn't know that was an option when she got the job to tell me that. She wasn't honest. I didn't know what was going on in her life, but because she had the courage to be honest and to reveal that, it was just such a relief to her and she ended up staying for years. And so this honesty is, I keep saying, it's been in and out of my life, and I've seen it work, and I've seen it challenge for many, many years for me. I'll tell you a quick story, Dan. I was just graduated college, and I got in an accident on the beach in Newport, and the lifeguard thought I had neck injury, and so he kind of laid me down. And protocol on the beach, if you have any neck injury, you have to get transported to the hospital. And all of a sudden, I'm getting the 911 is there, the ambulance is there. I'm strapped to this board. I'm off to the hospital. And then when you get to the hospital, you're basically in their protocol as well. So all kinds of x-rays and tests and scans and physical therapy. And 3 hours later, they're like, yeah, you broke your nose. I'm like, okay, all of that. And so I leave this hospital, and then a couple of weeks later, the bills start coming in. And I was like, I had no money at all. I was broke as could be. I don't even think I had a job, or maybe I had a part-time job somewhere. And this bill, I kind of remember the number being around $5,000 for about 3 hours of work. So the bill started coming in. And so what I did is, like, I can't hide from this, and I can't pay it. So I started calling them. Hey, I got this bill for $1,500 from the ambulance company. I got this bill from the x-ray tech, and I got this bill from the hospital. I started calling all the departments and just saying, hey, I can't pay it. And they're like, well, you have to pay it. I'm like, I know, but I'm just trying to pay for food and keep the lights on and pay rent. And there's no extra money. I mean, it's not like, and so I started sending them my bills, and they wanted reports, and I sent them everything they wanted. And this kind of went on for several weeks. And you're the first person, I just remember one of the agents, you're the first person that's ever proactively called us and said, you can't pay. Usually you guys can't pay, and we send you to collections, and we kill your credit report. I'm like, look, I'd like to pay. I can't pay. I don't know what you want me to do. I'm not going to pay you guys and avoid buying food. And then I got a call, and every single one of the departments said, we're dismissing your bill. We have departments for this and charitable giving, and you're fine. Good luck. And I was just like, oh my gosh, all I was doing is being completely honest and transparent in that. And I'm like, oh, this really works. Honesty is a major tool.
What's that one saying, Grondin? The truth will set you free.
Truth will
It's because then it's almost like whatever verdict happened, if they told you, hey, you still have to pay, that would have been you just doing your best to show them. But when you are honest, like just like your employee that was honest with you about the bus, it's like that set her free to being whatever your decision is. It's out of my hands, but whatever you think whatever you want to do will happen. And it's just amazing how it'll set you free, and it'll happen the way it's going to happen.
It's great. So here's a couple things that I've done in life to kind of support the honesty. But if you haven't done this yet, install accountability in your life. So you need a couple guys that you could be honest with and truthful with. And so understand the difference between honesty and vulnerability. You should be vulnerable with a couple guys or a couple close friends. You should be honest with everyone, but maybe vulnerable with just a couple people, right? My friend keeps challenging me. He's like, if you're hiding 1% of your life, so you're known 99%, then you're hiding a lot, because that 1% could bring you down. And so install some accountability in your life. And I would say all of our DMs and GMs know how to establish that or have that in their life, but just people who love you and are pulling for you and encouraging, and know you're not perfect. And so have that group of guys saying, okay, they're going to hold you accountable to these things. And so create that accountability life. And then there's things that generally, I love the Find My Friends, or if you don't have Life 360, once I started installing that, and I have my wife on that, and I have my kids on that, and my business partners are on Find a Friends. I love the idea that at any time my friends can go and see, hey, where am I at? What am I doing? And I'll tell you, it's been a game changer for my wife and I as well. When we have Life 360, do you have Life 360, Dan, on your app, on your phone?
No, I do not, but I've heard good things.
It's great, but every time you could say, when you leave the office, it kind of dings on her phone. Hey, Scott has left the office. And you can kind of set up different spots that you visit a lot, or, if you're at home, hey, so-and-so's left the house. And it's great. So for her, not in the early days before we had this technology, she would always wonder, where am I? What am I doing? And I would actually allow the dishonesty to creep in. She would say, have you left yet? I'm like, oh yeah, I already left. Right. And the reality is I'm walking to my car. Right. It's a little white lie. And then I'd have to think, well, why did it take you so long to get home? Well, traffic was bad today. Right. And now with this accountability, I really can't lie, because I know she's probably saying,
yeah,
have you left yet?
So,
oh yeah, well, it says you're still at the office.
Garner, that makes me laugh because there was one time you and I were, I think we were in Vegas or something, and for a convention or whatever, and you shared your location with me, and then for 2 years, until you got a new phone, I always knew where you were. And so it just reminded me, and I remember, I think I even brought it up to you one time. I was like, hey, I can see where you're at, like, and you're like, yeah, I don't have nothing to hide. And it was just so funny to me. I was like, you're the only person in my life that was on my Find My Friends or whatever it was called. And I was like, and you were just like, you were totally fine with me just keeping it. And I just thought that was so funny. Like, you're like, yeah, I've got nothing to hide, so it's fine, whatever. Oh, man, it made me laugh.
Having enough people that are occasionally looking at you, it just in the back, it's just sitting right back there, man. I got to watch what I'm doing, or where I'm going, or what I'm saying.
Sure.
And this, by the way, please don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying that we got this mastered. We're always, I'm always battling with this white lie, or trying to make myself look better. But a couple tools. Dan, can I share my screen?
Yeah, go for it. Let me pass it over to you.
Okay, I'll do it in a second. A couple tools that we have given you guys. Just having this one word alone on the walls at your site. This is a phrase you guys could master: in the spirit of honesty, in the spirit of our value. I want to evaluate you. Okay. I love that. You have shoulder time. We've given you the ability and the desire and the time in your schedule to have shoulder time with people, to invest in them, and to be honest with them about what the company's doing, what your sites are doing, where they're trending as far as their career plan goes. So you have shoulder time. You guys have the Goodwill site budget to be spending with people to really develop these relationships, and honesty should be part of that, relationship. The 20-70-10, I'm going to show you how I present 20-70-10 in a second. But we've given you guys books like the QBQ books to talk about, don't be a victim here, be honest in how you approach life. So we've given you all kinds of tools. You have very, very clear checklist to be honest. Here's what the standard is, and it's written out, and there's processes and procedures. So we have lots and lots of tools that we've given you guys to be honest. So let me see, Dan, if I could share this real quick. I want to show you guys real quick. I know you've seen the model of 20-70-10. But if you have a piece of paper, can you see that, Dan?
Yes, sir.
All right. So hold on a second. All right. So if you have a piece of paper, here's how I present 20-70-10. And I had this, my first, I don't know what, probably a supervisor back in the day. I worked in the grocery business, and his name was Mike Cook. And this was very, very impactful for me. But he was probably a year or two older than me, and I was probably 17 years old, maybe 16. And he was probably 18 or 19, just graduated high school. And our job in the grocery business was to go get the grocery carts, and then go put the food away that was left behind. And then we had to go check prices or do whatever. And I had this job for about 10 days. And Mike walked up to me. He's like, yeah, I think you're going to get fired, or I hear you're going to get fired. And I was like, well, why would you fire me? I'm like a nice guy. I show up every day to work. And he's like, well, because you don't run, you don't hustle. And I'm like, I didn't know we were supposed to run or hustle. And he's like, don't you look at, and I opened up my eyes, and everyone was running and hustling. And it was an unspoken culture that we run and we hustle, but it wasn't spoken. It didn't come up in training. It didn't come up in the interview process. Hey, if you get this job, are you able to run and get carts? And so none of that was discussed. And so I started, because he told me I'm going to get fired, and because he told me the strategy to keep my job, all of a sudden instantly. Within 2 minutes, I started running and hustling everywhere. And I kept that job for 5 more years, all through college. And it was an amazing job. I learned a lot about it. But here's a tool I want to give to you guys. So you could do this. I've done this at Starbucks on a napkin. You can do this on the back of an envelope. You can do this on just a simple piece of paper. But how to present 20, 70, 10 to your staff, right? It's super simple. Let's see here if I can get that. All right, so just start by drawing a line straight up, and then a line across the top, and a line across the middle, and then in the top quadrant, put 20, 70, 10. Okay, pretty simple. And then you hand a pen to your employee, and you say, hey, based on our theory of 20, 70, 10, and if you don't remember what those words are, a 20%er is someone who loves Watershed, wants to be part of Watershed for years. They want to make this their career. And we love it. They're an important part of the company, and that's where they're at. A 70%er is also the same, but they're not thinking this is a career. I'm here while I'm in college, or I'm here. This is a great job, but I have other aspirations, and that's fine too. But they're great employees. They load great. They're probably a high-level shift supervisor or assistant manager, and they haven't really made this a career yet for them. They're not sure where they're at. Okay, and then a 10%er is someone who's like, man, they're kind of doing the bare minimums or even below the company's standards is really where I put them. They have trouble. Occasionally they'll hit the company standards, but majority of the time they're below those standards. Okay. I give someone a pen and I say, hey, of this model, where would you put yourself? Are you a 20% or 70, 10? Every time I've done it, they put their line right there at the top end of the 70. And then because we want to be honest, I'm like, thanks for saying that. The reality is I think you're right here. And there's always like a moment of like disbelief, right? It's like when you get your first report card as a kid, it's like, you think you're an A student, and the teacher's like, no, you're a C student. You're like, oh, that's shocking, right? And so what we want to do then is we want to say, let's see here. You have 2 options from here. You want to go up in the organization, or unfortunately, we're going to have to move you out of the organization. And then what you're going to do is you're going to give them the 3 or 4 strategies you want them to improve on. Hey, I need you to be on time if you want to keep this job. You have to change your attitude. I need you to load the Watershed way. I need you to stop calling out. If you could do those things starting right now, like now, you have a chance to move up. And if this isn't for you, hey, that's fine. This is an honest evaluation. It can be done very, very quick. 10 minutes with someone, it's shoulder time. The goal for us as managers is to, let's see here, hold on. All right, am I back? The goal for us to managers is to develop people, to keep them in the organization for as long as they want to be here. Give them the tools they need to be successful. And I love it because this is a very, very simple tool for you guys to be honest and evaluate people. So the other things you
sorry, Grana, can you pass me back lead? I have to mute someone. Or just mute Sevi. Sorry, we're getting feedback.
How do I send it back?
Double click on my name and then, or hit the 3 dots and then just make host.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Sorry, Sevi.
Sorry, Sevi.
Just being honest here. You're being too loud.
I'm just being truthful.
Yeah, so real quick, then we can wind up here, Dan. You guys, the other tools you guys have for honesty, if is our job is to develop staff. This idea of the bigger authority, the company value, the company values, the company policies and procedures, that's a good authority to go to and say, hey, here's the backdrop of how we're managing our company. This is what it says. Your job is to enforce it. You can also use the bigger authority. You can say, hey, Justin said, Mark said, this came from corporate, my DM said, right? And so if you're having trouble with conflict, then make someone else the bigger authority and say, hey, we're just enforcing kind of what Eva wants to get done with our territory, right? This is what Willie wants us to do. We have to update our manuals. We have to keep the office clean, the back room clean. This is what's required of us. We are then, as a manager, we're going on the side of the employee and getting tasks done. and that's a great tool. I've used that authority management structure for years. It helped me for years. This is coming from our client. We have to keep things organized. This is our dress code. This isn't my policy, this is our policy together, right? So we have the ability to be honest with people, but use the bigger authority to do that, right? And I'll just remind you guys, we are like the police. The police don't write the laws, they just enforce the laws, right? But it's always interesting. I always talk to people who get a speeding ticket. It's never their fault. It's like, I don't know why the cops pulling me over, everyone else is speeding, right? I don't know why they're not out there getting real criminals. I didn't do anything wrong. Big deal. I was going 10 miles over the speed limit, like all this justification. And I always tell people, if you don't want a speeding ticket, stop speeding, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. But and that's our job as managers, is to develop staff. And if you don't want to get written up, stop being late to work. Okay. If you want to, and then on the other side, if you want to keep growing, make more sales, you're going to make more money, move up the organization, watch the videos, follow the policies, follow the standards. So I love this word of honesty, Dan, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everyone that I've ever come across. It's one of those things that it always sticks around, especially this idea of stretching the truth and white lies. But I want to encourage you guys to make this kind of the word for the rest of the year, and really evaluate how you speak to people. Are you in that group that's constantly lying or misleading or stretching the truth a little bit? And just catch yourself to be honest, see what happens. Thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, it's great. Hey, one thing I wanted to highlight as well is that that's why we did telling truth, speaking truth, and living truth, is that it's not, and I promise, if you just ask them on the street, like, what's honesty? And they'd be like, telling the truth. And that's fair, because that's what we typically think of, like, just tell the truth, like your mom always told you to do. But this is really active in business. Like, speaking truth is so important to great conversation, to great relationships, to it's so multi-versatile in compared to like, oh, it's just telling the truth. It's just, yeah, don't lie. But it's more than that. It's how you interact with your team. It's how you live out your life with employees and coworkers and customers, and it's bigger than just telling the truth.
Yeah,
it's good.
that's all we got.
Hey, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gronin before we send him on his merry way? Anybody? Okay, cool. Awesome. Thumbs up. I got thumbs up. And that's the fun thing about it, because most people know that, yes, this is a pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. So thank you so much, Gronin, for teaching us. Thank you for laying out for us. And I love what you encouraged us, is like, let this be something you're evaluating yourself on. Do a little personal test on yourself and be honest with yourself. Do you fib? Do you do the white lies? Do you kind of generalize things to make it sound prettier or better put together? That's probably what Instagram mostly is a bunch of lies of like people's lives, right? Like, look at me having so much fun on the beach, and then they don't show the picture of their kid face planting in the sand or something. But it's funny how we live out our lives. Like, are we just, is it a front, or is it really being truthful to who we are? So I think it's a great calling to put ourselves to the test.
I think it's true.
So,
though. It is true. You are at the beach. You are just, but we know we're sending a false narrative that everything is perfect. I got this great little family.
Yeah. It's kind of, no, totally. It reminds me of just social media in general. Just like this idea of like, look how good it is. And like, there's some people that do a great job of showing like the truth behind it all. But like, man, then you look at things like, man, this guy's got such a great life, but you have no idea. So anyways, that's just kind of a cute little reference to that. But guys, thank you so much for being on the call. Everyone that's putting time and investment into being here, thank you so much. I know DRB sites have their hands full of zip codes, and so thank you for carving out time. I know there's a bunch of sales guys that aren't on the call because they're out in the lanes helping. So thank you to those guys, and anybody that's out there right now. I know it's a little hectic, and
hey guys, with zip codes, there is an announcement. We're reverting back, so there's messages that were going out on it. So everyone, we'll roll it out later on, but we should be doing transaction manager restarts. Just look on the all managers page.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. See how quick? Like that. It was done. All right, cool. And we are going to bring it back. I just think we have to roll it out in a strategic way. So I think that's a good call. All right, guys. Peace. Have a wonderful day. Thanks, Grounded. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Grounded. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Thank you.